Shalom brothers and sisters, welcome back to the channel. I want to follow up the previous teaching with a short addition to a few things that have been noticed since the last teaching was released, where we looked at the Pope, the newly elected Pope, and a connection between the Pope in the 17th century and the 144,000 slaves of that day, and how there is a parallel to the 144,000 in this day, which will be the servants of Yah that are sealed in the book of Revelation chapter 7. And so I want to draw a few parallels or a few connections very briefly and link you to a video I did almost 2 years ago, which shows how there is a connection potentially with a particular tribe and a particular individual. And could all these things be aligning to show us a repetition of history and some hidden things in scripture? So I want to show you a connection that was shown in the previous teaching. And again, a shout out to our brother Benaiah Israel, who presented this information with the Ascensiento contract. Now, many people, including myself, believe that the new Pope would have some kind of African or some kind of heritage from black people. And when Pope Leo was announced, of course, on the surface, that wasn't something that was seen. But it has since now circulated that he is a descendant of Creole people from New Orleans, including some with ties to Caribbean descent. And so you could say that that prophecy, so to speak, has been fulfilled, or there is a connection at least with that particular speculation that many of us had. And the reason why many of us have had that is because we know that in these end times, we believe that many of the characters that we see in our scriptures that play part of the end time prophecy, whether they be of Yah or whether they be of Hasatan, will all have those characteristics, as in the people of the book. That is the nation that they will come from. That's the heritage that they will have. And so it's no coincidence that we're seeing these news stories circulate. And that's why it's important to do digging and to make sure that you do due diligence to find out these things, because sometimes what's on the surface, i.e. the color of the skin, doesn't always portray to the history and the heritage that that individual may have. Nevertheless, we've seen this connection now, and now we are starting to get some more understanding and see some more particular signs. Now, this Ascensiento contract, which, as I said, our brother Benaiah Israel presented on his recent teaching, was something that, as I began to study it in a bit more detail, where it shows that 144,000 Negro slaves were allowed to be sold, I started to think about the particular cost of these slaves. And it shows you that these slaves that were authorized for sale, it has a currency rate of 4,800 of a particular currency, which I don't exactly know what countries were using that currency, but there's certainly a link to a currency. And as I began to look into it in a bit more detail, the Ruach spoke to me and said, investigate the currency. So I did some division, that 144,000 slaves divided by the currency of 4,800 gives you the exact answer of 30. And immediately as I saw 30, the connections came, where the Ruach then took me to this scripture in Matthew 26:14-15, where it says, Then one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot, went unto the chief priests and said unto them, What will you give me? And I will deliver him unto you. And they covenanted with him for 30 pieces of silver. So we see that the deceiver, we see that the one who betrayed Messiah sold him out for 30 pieces of silver. And then we see a parallel that this particular Pope authorized the sale of these Negroes. And when we do the division, when we do the math, we see that it worked out to be 30 pieces of the currency of that time. An amazing parallel, which I believe, as you know, those that have followed me for a while, I do not believe in coincidences. So I believe that this is something deliberately connected to the scriptures and draws a parallel of this day to give us clues as to what is about to take place. Now that we've seen a new pope come in to power, it is connecting the things of the past with the things of the present leading into the future so we can know what to expect. I don't believe these are coincidences. These are amazing parallels that the Most High is revealing to us to give us more understanding. Now we know that Judas Iscariot committed suicide after committing this treachery against Messiah, and that took the number from 12 disciples down to 11. And if we understand numbers in biblical terms, the 12 is the biblical number of government, leadership, and perfection. And that is why we had the 12 disciples originally and the 12 brothers from the 12 tribes of Yasharal. And so when Judas committed this suicide, it took the number down to 11, and 11 being the biblical number of chaos, judgment, and disorder. And we see that Judas Iscariot received his judgment when he committed suicide. But we also should see that this number 11 is found in the scriptures when we go to the book of Numbers chapter 11 verse 1. It says, "And when the people complained, it displeased Yah, and Yah heard it, and his anger was kindled, and the fire of Yah burnt amongst them and consumed them that were in the uttermost part of the camp." So these Yasharelites that were complaining and murmuring received judgment, and it was the fire of Yah that came amongst them and burnt them. So a great significance to judgment with the number 11. And are we now going to see in these end times another judgment of number 11, when the fire of Yah will consume and the fire of Yah will take out his wrath upon those who committed sin against his people? And are we going to see the number 12 as the number of government, perfection, and leadership through the 144,000, which are formed by the 12 times 12,000 from each of the tribes of Yasharal? So these are some of the things that we can expect to see as we go forward in the very near future. And I believe judgment is imminent. We're already seeing judgment from the start of this year and even before, but these things have been gathering pace. But are we going to see a major switch according to some of these parallels from the past as to the parallels of the future? Only time will tell. So I don't want to take up too much time, but I want to leave you with a clip, as I mentioned, from a video, a teaching I did a couple of years ago almost. And I will leave the link in the description for the full video, which will show you in more detail what the teaching was referring to, as it was about the tribes of Yasharal, as in the brothers, the 12 brothers we find that were prophesied to by their father Yasharal, or Jacob, when he was on his deathbed, and he prophesied to them, found in Genesis 49, as to what would befall them in the latter days. And we see one particular tribe that when we go to the 12 tribes in the book of Revelation, the 12 times 12,000 that was sealed, we see one tribe missing. And this clip shows us a connection between that missing tribe and also the one who sold out Messiah for 30 pieces of silver. And when we start doing the connections, we see this number 11 cropping up. And does that give us a clue as to where this particular son of perdition of that day was from? Does it also give us a clue as to where the son of perdition in this modern day that will be coming soon, does it give us a clue to where he's from? And also, now that we know that this new pope is of the heritage of Creole descendants, does it also indicate where he potentially or his ancestors came from? all relating to this number 11. So I will leave you with this 10-minute video clip. The full link will be in the description, as well as the link for the teaching that went into more detail about these discoveries when we looked at the 144,000 that we're expecting to see soon, and the two witnesses. And will that come when we approach the feast of Pentecost or Shavuot, that we see these number of prophets of the Most High sealed? And will that also bring judgment, starting with that number 11, as we see the Most High's wrath poured out on those who committed sin against his people? We will find out in due course, but I'll leave you with that video clip, and I encourage you to keep looking at the signs and keep crying out to the Most High for more understanding and revelation, because he is accelerating our knowledge. He's accelerating the revelation he's giving us so that we won't be in the dark, and then we will be in the best place to receive of the Most High, so that we can make sure that we are not deceived. I'll leave it here. Check out the video clip, and shalom. Now, I want us to have a look at this chapter, Deuteronomy chapter 27. Very often a chapter overlooked because we go straight to Deuteronomy chapter 28. And actually, Deuteronomy 27 gives us a lot of foundation to what we need to understand Deuteronomy 28. So I'm going to read through the chapter. It's not a very long chapter, just 26 verses. I'm going to read through it from start to finish. And then we will begin to expound the parts of it we need to expound to get a bigger picture and bigger understanding of this character, Dan. So Deuteronomy 27 verse 1, and Moses with the elders of Yasharel commanded the people, saying, keep all the commandments which I command you this day. And it shall be on the day when ye shall pass over Jordan unto the land which Yah thy Allah giveth thee, thou shalt set thee up great stones, and plaster them with plaster, and thou shalt write upon them the words of this law. When thou art passed over, that thou mayest go into the land which Yah thy Allah giveth thee, a land that floweth with milk and honey, as Allah of thy fathers has promised thee. Therefore it shall be when ye go over into Jordan, that ye come set up these stones which I command you this day in Mount Ebal, and thou shalt plaster them with plaster. And there thou shalt build an altar unto Yah thy Allah, an altar of stones. Thou shalt not lift up any iron tool upon them. Thou shalt build the altar of Yah thy Allah of whole stones, and thou shalt offer burnt offerings thereon unto Yah thy Allah. And thou shalt offer peace offerings, and shalt eat thee there, and rejoice before Yah thy Allah. And thou shalt write upon the stones all the words of this law very plainly. And Moses and the priest, the Levites, spake unto all of Yasharel, saying, take heed and hearken, O Yasharel. This day thou art become the people of Yah thy Allah. Thou shalt therefore obey the voice of Yah thy Allah, and do his commandments and statutes which I command thee this day. And Moses charged the people the same day, saying, these shall stand upon Mount Gerizim to bless the people when ye are come over Jordan, Simeon and Levi and Yehudah and Issachar and Joseph and Benjamin, and these shall stand upon Mount Ebal to curse Reuben, Gad, and Asher, and Zebulun, Dan, and Naphtali. And the Levites shall speak and say unto all the men of Yasharel with a loud voice, cursed be the man that maketh any graven or molten image, an abomination unto Yah, the work of the hands of the craftsman, and put it in a secret place. And all the people shall answer and say, so be it. Cursed be he that setteth light by his father or mother. And all the people shall say, so be it. Cursed be he that removeth his neighbour's landmark. And all the people shall say, so be it. Cursed be he that maketh the blind to wander out of the way. And all the people shall say, so be it. Cursed be he that perverts the judgment of the stranger, fatherless, and widow, and all the people shall say, so be it. Cursed be he that lieth with his father's wife, because he uncovers his father's skirt, and all the people shall say, so be it. Cursed be he who lieth with any manner of beast. And all the people shall say, so be it. Cursed be he that lieth with his sister, the daughter of his father, or the daughter of his mother. And all the people shall say, so be it. Cursed be he that lieth with his mother-in-law, and all the people shall say, so be it. Cursed be he that smiteth his neighbour secretly, and all the people shall say, so be it. Verse 25. Cursed be he that taketh reward to slay an innocent person, and all the people shall say, so be it. Cursed be he that cometh not all to the words of this law and do them, and all the people shall say, so be it. Deuteronomy chapter 27 verses 1 through to 26. So we see a load of curses here that all the people shall agree to. They shall say, so be it, in agreement to what Moshe said. And we see before the beginning of these curses that the 12 sons are named, which we find in verse 12, that they shall come over the river Jordan, being Simeon, Levi, Yehuda, and Issachar, Joseph, and Benjamin. And these shall stand upon Mount Ebal to curse Reuben, Gad, and Asher, and Zebulun, Dan, and Naphtali. So we see that this is very interesting here, because we've generally seen these 12 tribes previously in the scriptures, as I said, in Genesis 49 and prior to that, as all blessed. And here we are seeing almost a separation, that half of the tribes, being Simeon, Levi, Yehuda, Issachar, Joseph, and Benjamin, stand on one side, and cursed be the other 6 that stand on the other side: Reuben, Gad, Asher, Zebulun, Dan, and Naphtali. And this is really interesting and takes a lot for us to understand what's going on here. And this is why I go back to what I said originally, that all the 12 tribes of Yasharel in some way had their challenges and in some ways went astray. But we're seeing already here that there was a kind of separation, and Dan, the tribe who are omitted from the 12 tribes in Revelation chapter 7, we see that Dan falls on the side of the curse. So what does that mean? Because the rest of those other tribes that fell with Dan, i.e. Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Zebulun, and Reuben, those ones listed in verse 13, they are still remembered in Revelation chapter 7. They are still sealed. Their lineage is still protected, and their descendants, 144,000 in total, but 12,000 from each tribe, their descendants are still protected, whereas Dan wasn't. So this is a very important chapter for us to digest and get some understanding of. And as I said before, it's one of those chapters that very often is overlooked, because we jump straight to Deuteronomy 28 and we look at all the blessings and cursings listed there. From verse 1 to 14 in Deuteronomy 28, you've got the blessings. And then from verse 15 onwards to 68, you've got the curses. And we look at those in more detail. But this chapter 27 sets us up to understand the blessings and cursings. And we've just read through all of those in chapter 27. So I want us to delve a bit deeper now and look at something very interesting in terms of breaking down these curses. Now, we have 12 tribes listed and 12 curses listed. And if we look at each tribe and assign a number to how they were listed in order. So Simeon was the first one. And we look at the first curse that was given. If we do that for each tribe or each brother and look at all the various curses, assign one to each, we will find something very interesting. And that is, by the time we get down to Dan, the tribe missing in Revelation chapter 7, which is the 11th tribe, we see the curse assigned to number 11, or the 11th curse, was, cursed be he that taketh reward to slay an innocent person. We find in verse 25 of Deuteronomy chapter 27. And this is very interesting because we know Dan was omitted from Revelation 7, as mentioned a couple of times already. However, just on the basis of saying, okay, Dan was the 11th tribe listed and the 11th curse listed is cursed be he that taketh reward to slay an innocent person. And when we go forward and think that Dan, the 11th tribe, could be assigned to the curse that they taketh reward to slay an innocent person, Deuteronomy 27 and 25, we can find an individual that would seem to perfectly fit that curse. Then one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot, went unto the chief priests and said unto them, what will ye give me, and I will deliver him unto you? And they covenanted with him for 30 pieces of silver, and from that time he sought opportunity to betray him. Matthew 26:14 through to 16.